There's a new legendary creature cycle in Phyrexia. All will be one, and we're going to talk about those 5 cards in this video.
It is strong! These cards are insanely pushed, and in this video we will have cards in the middle screen that move into the left of the screen. And then a new card will come up, and we will talk about that one. Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat. Hello and welcome to the day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I'm Jake.
I'm Mondrak, Glory Dominus. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. Jake, look at this card. This card is reminiscent of cards that are already wildly played, super pushed, have to be in certain types of decks. Mondrak says if one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead.
Yeah, this is like essentially Mondrak anointed parallel doubling Dominus. It just falls right into that cycle of cards that's just like everything that's really good for token strategies. You're going to notice something about all of these cards. They all have a secondary effect on them, an activated ability that is going to put an indestructible counter on them. This is something that you can do at instant speed. It is a throwback to the original time that we went to Phyrexia, where we do have Phyrexian mana, and you will find that some of these are very pushed. Essentially all of them are very good. Mondrak, one of the best, easily. Yeah. When you have like, it's essentially anointed procession.
You look at that bottom ability and you go, how easy is that to pull off? Because this is anointed procession that can turn into an indestructible ground blocker. It's kind of insane to me. You know, 1 mana, 4 life, and sack 2 other artifacts and or creatures, and all you had to do was get, by the way, 1 artifact token or creature token created, and then you automatically have your 2 from Mondrak's ability, and you can do it at instant speed in response to a board wipe. You don't even have to just do it outright. I would actually save it, keep the mana up, keep the artifacts and creatures ready to go, but I would actually save it until I was responding to somebody just to get that spell out of their hand, or at least have the upper hand on the timing. Mondrak, I think you're absolutely right, Jake, is top of probably the most strong one, but they're all very strong, including Solphim.
Yeah, they kind of lean into their own different strategies, red being one of the more punishing ones. Mayhem Dominus here, 2 red, 2 other. For a 5/4, if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or permanent an opponent controls, it deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. So thinking of cards like Repercussion that already do stuff like this, you know, you can pair this, use this as your commander, your Punisher commander, to really go ham and deal some damage. All of the casting costs on these cards are very reasonable as well. You know, being in monocolor, you're going to play stuff like Mana Rocks. But this one also has an ability, discard 2 cards, put an indestructible counter on Solphim Dominus of Hunger, and you can do that for 2 red Phyrexian mana and then 1 generic mana. Very strong card. Having an ability like this, a damage doubler on your commander, is just so strong. We find that in these sets where you have these big splashy enchantments, this is the kind of thing that players essentially gravitate towards. It's a really fun archetype to build into.
Yeah, it's funny that you said big splashy enchantments. I think that was just a Freudian slip, but that's how these kind of play. They all have an enchantment style ability on them, but they are creatures that can gain an indestructible counter at the same time. I have a Heartless Hidetsugu combo deck. It's pretty straightforward. Everybody knows Heartless Hidetsugu. It's get down a damage doubler, then play Heartless with a haste enabler so I can tap him and one-shot everybody, or play Heartless onto the battlefield, next turn play a damage doubler, tap him, and try and one-shot everybody. This is just another card to go into that. Any deck that's running Torbrand, any deck that's running stuff like Fiery Emancipation or Sulfur Vortex, this is automatically going into those decks.
The red Dominus also works really well with madness effects, being that as your commander, The more madness support that it gets over the years in red, the better the card is going to get.
Yeah, 100%. I actually a lot of times think that these are like absolutely perfect 99 cards, but maybe could end up being your commander if you wanted to build a monocolor around them. Drivnod, Carnage, Dominus automatically goes into anything that's running Sir Conrad. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. That's almost the exact text on Teysa. This deck already exists. It's like they're printing this straight into the Teysa Karlov Death Triggers deck. And then with Drivnod, if you'll notice the cost of his indestructible counter placement ability, it's just Phyrexian mana. You don't even need regular mana to do this.
You just need 4 life online ready to go
and
when
3
you play
creature
this.
cards in your graveyard. But I promise the decks that are running this already have their graveyard full. They are ready to go.
You know what we should mention before we get into the last two? We should mention that cards like Toxic Deluge and cards like Black Sun Zenith will probably see an uptick because, you know, this video is about how pushed these 5 creatures are. I mean, they're all very, very strong. And so when you have to think, you know, if these do come into Commander and they, you know, are splashy enough, if they are, you know, format bending enough, if they make a big enough wave in the format, then you will have people that seek out ways to kill them. You know, obviously Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares are still going to work for these.
Yeah.
But for colors that don't have access to that, you know, red damage isn't going to do anything to these once you get the indestructible counter online.
Right.
You can bounce them with blue, but like anything that's a destroy effect, so like white and green, that kind of stuff fights, none of that is going to do anything to these cards. And so -1/-1 counters, or -1/-1 until end of turn, effects like those are going to be very strong.
Yeah, I think you said it right. I don't think it's that they're going to be format bending, but like we have said for all of the ones we've seen so far, these are going straight into strong decks with archetypes that are already in existence and played. So it's just like an additional version of an effect for decks that are already strong. Look at the green one. How many times have we seen this on different cards, different enchantments? At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. Big Trample, anything that runs Garruk's Uprising, cards like that. And Sopandrel here, Hunger Dominus, is another one where you don't even need mana. You just pay life, sack 2 creatures, put an indestructible counter on it. You know, insect tokens, sapperling tokens, that could be a good space to build this card into. Anything that's black and green and a lot of recursion, that could be a good place to build this into it.
I think it definitely lives in a token deck. Like Gav Guru of Spores comes to mind. Anything where, like, you know, you just have like a bunch of generic like 4/4s and like 2/2s, doubling that and just swinging, you know, wide, go wide. Again, being able to just for 4 life put the indestructible counter on, meaning like you could, you know, either curve into this, you know, play it right, ready to go on turn 7, or, you know, if you're in green, you should be playing it on like turn 5, turn 6, and then being able to put an indestructible counter on it in response to removal. Just being able to play it and know that you can protect it is a big deal. And also, if you're in those colors, it's really easy to gain life. It's like super easy to gain life. If you're in white, green, or in junk, you should be able to gain life, no problem, and make sure that you're, I think it's, I'm going to guess that it's pronounced Sopandrel.
Sopandrel? Sopandrel, okay.
Sopandrel.
You'll know this is the most expensive of these, and you know,
is it? Okay.
Well, yeah, as far as mana cost goes, and then sacrificing
I thought
2
you meant
creatures.
money.
No. We don't know what we don't look at pre-order prices around here.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know what that is.
You know, sacrificing 2 other creatures is very similar to Mondrak's ability, but Mondrak basically helps you get there, whereas with Sopandrel, you would need to create those 2 creatures in and of your own power and not with a token doubler. So as the green one, doubling power and toughness, this is definitely the kind of card that will
Reach
fit
is cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is. You're right. It's
Reach is good.
Indestructible blocker that can block anything in the
sky,
air,
block
on the
ground, whatever.
Right,
yeah,
exactly. Tekuthal, though, this is one that a lot of people are talking about, Jake.
Yeah, Inquiry Dominus, 2 blue, 2 other for a 3/5 flyer. If you would proliferate twice instead. Why not? And then we have the two blue Phyrexian and 1 generic to remove 3 counters from among other artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control. Put an indestructible counter on Tekuthal Inquiry Dominus. So you need to have counters that you can remove. But I think, this is kind of like a card that's an insta Atraxa card. This is something that Atraxa wants so much, and so it's going to live there. But I definitely think it has some other application as well. Yeah, pretty crazy card.
Any
Proliferate
super
twice,
friends, man. Yeah,
Big deal.
Anything that's running a lot of Planeswalker strategies obviously automatically wants this. There's a lot of Simic commanders that are specifically built around +1/+1 counters and doubling the amount of counters on the creatures that have +1/+1 counters. So just even more of that is what Tekuthal here provides. Plus, there's a lot of tentacles, and so that's going to turn some people on, right? I've heard that people are into that.
Well, it's essentially kind of, I think so. It's essentially like a Guard Gomazoa or like a Fog Bank too, once you get that indestructible counter on it, because it just sits there and it's just going to block stuff too. So
you want to talk about this from the Magic card aspect, and you'd want to just kind of breeze past the tentacle thing.
If you want to put more emphasis on the tentacle thing, we can have that conversation on Patreon.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have that conversation offline.
Yeah.
Let us know down in the comments what commander decks of yours these are going into immediately, or don't. I can't force you.
You don't have to do it, but if you want to get close, do it in the comments.